Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin. In this episode 272, I am joined by longtime friend of the pod. His name is Jordan Cohen. You can follow him at sports_by_stats. Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm really good. NBA All-Star Weekend. How's it going?
Can't complain. NBA All-Star Weekend. The Knicks close on a strong run. They are in the 6th seed, and I get to enjoy that for a full week without any chance of them losing a basketball game. It's great. It's possibly the best possible. It's the best possible situation to be in. I think the Cavs are in a similar boat, right? Did they lose their last game or did they win the last game?
They lost to Philly, and it was a really weird game because they started. It was one of the worst quarters I've ever seen them play. The first quarter, and then the rest of the game, they actually played Philly pretty well. It was just a terrible first quarter.
Yeah. But I mean, they had won what, 8 straight, or was it
7 straight? It was 7 straight. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like total high. Yeah.
You lost to Philly. It's fine. All right. Before we get into all of that, I have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram, so please give that a follow. That is at thestrict.land on Instagram. We are posting all kinds of new content on there, so please check it out. We also have a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are, please like the video and then subscribe to the channel. And also, if possible, share the video with your friends. That would be a great help to us. Finally, the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this pod that I host every Friday with Prez, except when he leaves me to go save the planet, as he's doing currently, like he is this week. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag that comes out every other week that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, a.k.a. the Doug Bag, along with Dallas Amico. You also get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There is a $9 tier that gets you access to Strick and Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful weekly premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day. Whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. So, without further ado, let's get started. I guess I want to touch base with you on this. So the Cavs did nothing at the trade deadline. They literally have done nothing. They are rumored to be on the verge of some kind of buyout with Kevin Love, but they want like a promise that he's not going to sign with the Eastern Conference team or something. What were your thoughts on them standing pat? And do you think that's something that's fine for now, but could be something that comes back to haunt them later? Or is it more or less kind of you're fine with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a situation where, I mean, like, honestly, you and I talked, the Cavs were in for Josh Hart. Like that, I think that had, with the week to go in the trade deadline, kind of become the number one target. There was a lot of noise about LeVert getting traded. Towards the very end, there was noise about Love getting traded. And then Chetty has been demanding a trade for off and on for about a year now. And there was, again, noise about him getting traded. But at the end of the day, I think the Cavs didn't want to be sellers, and they wanted to be buyers. And the players they were rumored to be interested in buying, whether like Tim Hardaway Jr. was one, Cam Reddish from you guys is one, and Josh Hart was one. I think the price just for all those guys wasn't what they wanted. Long term, I think the Cavs are not going to keep Caris LeVert this summer. The cap isn't going to be friendly to that with having to extend Evan Mobley coming up soon, Jared Allen, Garland, Mitchell on big contracts. Like, I think LeVert more or less is going to walk for free in the summer, which unless he plays mediocre enough that nobody gives him a great offer. If the Cavs can keep him for like $10 million, they'll probably do it. But I think the Cavs definitely lost out on potentially moving him for something. But LeVert's just inconsistent. Like, when he's good, he's really good. And when he's bad, he just does nothing.
I mean, he has games where he looks like, what, he had 40, was it 41 against Boston this year?
Yeah, against Boston. That was the first week of the season or second week of the season.
Yeah, and it was like, I think you guys, you didn't have Garland. I think he
Yeah.
maybe didn't have Mobley. I don't know. It was such a weird game, but it was like, yeah, he goes off. But he's always been one of those guys where it's like, you catch him on the right night, you're like, is he a star? Like, is this guy a star? And then you catch him on other nights, and you're like, well, is he an NBA player? Are we sure that he's an NBA player? So
I mean, the
he's
Cavs have one of the worst catch and shoot percentages in the NBA,
it's
which
probably
is
like what
like kind of crazy if you think about it.
well, it's probably like Mitchell and Garland are the only guys making any catch and shoot shots.
Right, because Okoro, like the Cavs, like game by game catch and shoot percentage goes as Isaac Okoro and Karis LeVert go. Right, if those two are hitting threes, then the Cavs look like they're a great catch and shoot team. On nights where they're not, the Cavs look like they're terrible. And I think like they're maybe like 26th or 27th in the NBA. Like it's a really weirdly low percentage for a team that's as good at shooting threes as we are. But like Mitchell's just creating so much off like his own ISO possessions that's just a lot of the threes are Mitchell ISOs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a the Cavs are just kind of like you're talking about they didn't have the kind of opportunity to or they didn't the price wasn't what they wanted. It's also like a question like the prices they've got to be so careful with what they pay out in anything. And then, like the Knicks put a first round pick on the table for Josh Hart. The Cavs literally just can't do that. Like they just can't
Right.
do it. So it's like one of those things where even if you wanted to pay the price, you can. And then, maybe a guy like Cam Reddish, it was like, hey, we could get him for 2 seconds. But it's like, okay, well, if we get him for 2 seconds, we no longer have those seconds, which means we have to keep Reddish, who may or may not be good. And now we don't have those 2 seconds anymore. And it's like, it's hard to balance that because you got to make those moves for the right guys. And yeah, I mean, I think to some degree, like caution was probably a worthwhile frame of mind to be in for them at the deadline. I do wonder, like, it's just such a weird thing with like LeVert specifically is interesting because like LeVert and Love really. I'm assuming with Love, it was kind of a thing where they're like, hey, this guy's been like, he's on the championship team, he's hung out for a few years. Like, we're not going to trade him somewhere he doesn't want to go. If he wants to go, we'll give him a buyout and he can go where the fuck he wants, as long as it's not in the East.
Yeah.
But like, I think with Levert's different to me because obviously you don't need to have the same sense of loyalty to him in any way. And that salary slot, like, there's a bunch of guys around the league. Like, I'm fairly confident. I would be surprised if they'd come to the Knicks and be like, we'll give you LeVert for Fournier straight up, that the Knicks would have said no. And that's not even to say like Fournier would be some awesome upgrade. I'm not sure that's even a downgrade though, based on what I've seen a little bit this year. It might be like a lateral move, but at least you keep that salary slot open for another year. And I just wonder if there's like a value to that they weren't willing to explore enough of, or do you think they did explore that and it just those kind of deals weren't out there for them?
I mean, so like with the Love situation, I think it was very much. I don't think the Cavs wanted to get rid of him. I think the Cavs. It actually wouldn't surprise me if he ends up a Cav next year again. But I think that on the salary slot, Love wants to play. Like at the end of the day, Love just wants to play basketball. It sounds like he's going to take a very team friendly buyout. That the Cavs are basically going to like get out of. I mean, the grand majority of the remainder of his contract.
So
And
it's probably around like 10 million, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe like
Yeah.
I think it may be less. Like he really is. Like he wants to go play. The rumor that's popped up a lot is Golden State, so we'll see if that happens. I mean, I guess it would make sense. The LeVert thing, I don't know. It depends. So, like, a lot of the beat reporters say LeVert is kind of like this great locker room guy and that everybody really likes him. He, like, gets along with a lot of the players. He was really good, I guess, for Isaac Okoro earlier in the year, like, trying to keep his confidence up. So, I think there's that. I think the Cavs are keeping an eye open to this summer because at the end of the day, the spot they still haven't filled is the 3 spot, right? It's that forward that is not like it is your basically your catch and shoot guy, or more. And I mean, you and I have talked about this before. Jared Allen's had a great year. Jared Allen, his year is almost as good as it was last year. I think if a real small forward, like a first option small forward or three, became available this summer, it wouldn't surprise me if the Cavs would combine Jared Allen with something to get that player, especially with Mobley kind of expanding. So that's why the Levert thing's weird to me, because the Levert slot could have been used in combination with Allen's contract.
Right, because that gets you to like 38, 40 million, I think.
Right. Like, what if Paul George becomes a fit? Right. What if the Clippers say, like, we're trading Paul George?
Yeah, we need a big. We need to get a center back. Like, it's possible, right? Yeah, it's a tough one. And like, look, I'm not claiming to be a huge Cleveland Cavaliers cap aficionado, but I would assume they're not, like, they could have done, maintain that salary slot and not been in danger of going into the luxury tax for next year.
Yes,
I think it's the year. It's the year after that would get tricky. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those tough things. And funny enough, like, I think the Knicks are partially dealing with some of those issues right now. Like, not to the same extent, but like, I think one of the motivations in getting a Josh Hart was, like, one, they wanted to get a player who immediately made them better, right? And he jumps into the rotation for Deuce. You're already seeing the dividends of that. Even though it's only been 3 games, it's been a tremendous 3 games. And I think the other part of it is, like, look, they were in line to have 2 first-round picks this year. I'm not sure that they, like, let's say they don't make the trade, right? You're going to roster 2 rookies. Maybe one of those guys is good enough to be in the rotation. It's unlikely that as a rookie they'd be as good as Josh Hart is today. I think it's a fair trade. Like, I think it's a bit like if you're just looking at it in pure terms of, like, expiring contract, what assets you're trading out, I think it's fair to say the Knicks overpaid a little bit. But, like, I think it's a reasonable overpay. It's not like some egregious thing that fucks them over. And then you just kind of like look, they're gonna keep Hart. There's no shot he's leaving. He's a former Leon Rose guy. He's a current CAA guy. He's best buddies with Jalen Brunson. He was teammates with Julius Randle. Like, he's obviously going to stay. They don't make this trade unless they have an idea that he's going to stay. And they probably have an idea of what the number is going to be. Now, where it gets tricky for them is they probably want to keep the mid-level exception open, because obviously they can use that to add a piece. So what I think ends up happening is they probably move Obi this offseason, because that should give them enough space to roster a rookie, get a mid-level exception guy in, extend Hart, and then fill out the roster with, whatever, minimum guys, biannual exception dudes. And, does that, like, look, the Obi thing has just been weird forever. And I'm not sure how much to blame them for it, because, like, at the end of the day, Julius Randle just waking up in 2020, 2021 and being like, hey, I'm an all-star now. Like, that changes your plans. So it's a weird one. And I think it's easy for me to sit here and be like, well, if that was your plan, you should have stuck to your plan. And it's like, plans fucking change. And this plan has changed. And the fact that Randall came back this year after a miserable season last year and has played even better than he did in 2020, 2021 to me. We'll see if he gets the same accolades, All-Star and All-NBA. I'm not sure. But, like, the fact that he's done that, I think it gives you a little bit more. And the way he's done it, which is not buoyed on, outrageous mid-range shooting and super hot, 3-point shooting. It's like, no, he's just taking more threes, not hitting them, but he's shooting only like 34%. And he's taking more shots at the rim, and he's offensive rebounding better. Like, these are not crazy things, right? So I think given the nature of his improvement, it's reasonable to just be like, hey, look, like, there's probably no path here for Obi to be more than a 20-minute-a-night guy, even in the best scenario. So let's move him for some asset while we can, get him off our cap sheet, and then we can kind of duck under the cap or tax for next year, and then see what happens. But, like, look, the Knicks obviously want to stay flexible to be a player for a star. Like, that's known, and it's not exactly a big surprise for them. It's not a big surprise for any team. I hope people know this. Like, NBA teams want stars. That's just how it goes. Like, That's it. That's the big secret. But like, obviously, we know that they want to be in the mix for that. So, I think staying under the tax before you get one is usually like where you want to be. Whereas you look at a team like Atlanta, where they went really like they kind of did the same thing the Knicks did in terms of like, oh, we need to get another guard, we need another ball handler, and the way they decided to do it was obviously trade 2 picks for DeJounte Murray, or 2 unprotected picks and a protected pick. Yeah, and then an unprotected pick and an unprotected pick swap at one point. So it's like, and you look at their results, and it's just like, I think it's, and they're obviously in danger of being a tax team next year, which they were in danger of being a tax team this year, which is why, like, when people are like, why did they trade Kevin Huerter? That's why they traded Kevin Huerter for nothing, like, for a protected pick, because they just needed to deduct the tax. And that's probably why they're going to end up, they're probably praying that Bogdanovich opts out of his player option or whatever he has, and maybe they try to dump one of these other guys. But like, they're in this situation now, and they're in this situation before they've even had a real chance to become a contender. So I think like it is smart for the Knicks to try to stay under the tax next year, even if like, because it's not about, if they were like $2 million over the tax, it's only going to be what, $6-7 million tax bill, right? It's not a big deal, but like, it's when you get into that situation and then you maybe hit the repeater tax, that's when it gets painful. So you want to avoid paying the tax until you're like in a contention period. So I think it's smart for the Knicks to do that. But yeah, the
other thing for you guys, like right, your coach is Thibs, and if you guys make the playoffs this year, next year your coach is probably going to be Thibs, right? And Thibs isn't going to play a rookie. Like, he's just not. You see that with Obi. Like, he doesn't play rookies. So,
well, he'll play them. I think he would play them if we were like when like his first year he played quickly and Obi as rookies. But it's also because like, what was he going to do? Like
right.
Like,
but like, but like
in this situation, you're right.
Hart,
He's not. Yeah,
and like I've made this argument for years now. But first round picks have different values to different teams, right? For a team like the Knicks, like Josh Hart is worth more than the first round pick, right? Yeah. He just is. Like,
and you still have one anyway, so it's not like you're punting on the draft entirely.
Right, you're getting rid of one of them, and so like I think that when it comes to the tax, right, you only like the two barriers in the NBA are assets available to trade and the tax, and especially like as you said, the repeater tax. And so it's always walking that fine line where you need to maintain the assets until you have a team that you think is good enough that you're going to be willing to pay the repeater tax. But then when you hit that, there's generally speaking not a way out. Like, you're kind of just fucked. Yeah. So you better be good.
Yeah, and the only way out of it is to like basically have to trade good players that you don't want to trade. Like, I mean, look, I don't think Huerter is amazing, but he's obviously a good wing, and they had to they trade him for a protected first, which, like, I mean, the best case scenario effectively is like they use their protected first with another salary guy to get a player equivalent to Kevin Huerter. Like, that's basically the best case scenario for them. Or the protected first conveys and they use it and they hit some like crazy home run in the draft, right? But it doesn't seem like you're not getting that protected first probably to hold on to if you're Atlanta. You got that pick to use in a trade. And it's just, I'm not sure. Look, that Atlanta team, we just played them. That was our last game for All-Star break. They're a fucking disaster.
I've never said that. They are the worst defensive team I've seen this year.
They're awful, and their vibes are terrible. And they look like, I'm surprised Nate McMillan hasn't been fired yet. And I'm not even saying, like, I don't think Nate McMillan is a fantastic coach. I don't think he's an awful coach. I think he's an okay coach. But, like, they're not responding to him. I think they have the second lowest 3-point attempt rate in the league, which is fucking crazy.
When Trae Young is your point guard? Yeah. Are you fucking, like, how?
It's bananas. And then on top of that, like, I think their front office is a fucking mess. I think it's a mess. I'm not sure. It's weird because I actually don't know how many of the decisions that were made to build this roster before this past offseason were made by Tony Resler, who's their owner, or made by, I forget the guy who was there right before this, their GM that got fired. But like Resnick, Whatever.
Gretzky.
Yeah, but like it's and then now they have Landry Fields, former Knick, once a Knick, always a Knick, running the front office, and it's like, but he just seems like a yes man to their son, like the owner's son, and so apparently the DeJounte Murray trade was made because Tony Ressler, I think his name is Nick Ressler, he like wanted DeJounte and he was like convinced that this would work. So that's probably a situation where like they're not going to sell on DeJounte. And then they're gonna have to pay him a max next summer, which is
I
like
don't even think DeJounte is the issue though. Like it
it's a
was a
it's a whole
weird.
roster issue. Like the whole
Yeah,
roster doesn't
like
make sense.
DeJounte and Trae Young, like there wasn't proof of concept on that one. Like it felt like a weird, like you were kind of just gambling. But I don't think DeJounte is the issue. I think the issue is you built this team in like an ideological way a few years ago, and you just assumed it was going to work, and it hasn't. And then you added another point guard to the roster and hoping for kind of like better results, and it just hasn't clicked.
Yeah, it's also a point guard who isn't like. So if you were gonna do this, right? Go back 2 years, right? When they make this Eastern Conference Finals run, the Hawks have this team that is like it's Trae Young, and then he handles the ball 98.7% of the time, and then the other 1.3 is just like random dudes taking a possession here or there, wing spotting up, whatever, right? Bogdanovich coming off curls, all that kind of shit. They try like I get like okay, so last year they regress. They beat the Cavs in the play-in. They sneak into like was it the 7th seed? They get destroyed by Miami in the first round. I mean, absolutely destroyed. Like Trae Young, he might as well have just retired after that series. It was that bad for him. But like, okay, you go out, so you see what happened. You're like, you know what? We got to get another ball handler here. Doesn't matter how good our offense is in the regular season. In the playoffs, teams can key in on him, and that's just a huge problem for us. That makes sense. That makes total sense. The problem is you have to get a guard because their logic was like, well, DeJounte's a great defender, which is exactly what we need next to Trae. So and he's a good ball handler, so Trae won't need to handle the ball as much. And what I never understood about that is I'm like, okay, the defensive part of it is fine. I think you're overrating how good DeJounte is on defense, but I get that. And that's the right idea. You need a strong defender next to Trae. The problem is DeJounte is not a good off-ball player. And to get utility out of DeJounte, you have to give him the ball a lot. And DeJounte is a very inefficient, higher usage guard. That's what he is. This is not like a criticism of him. That's the nature of his game. The way you get value out of him offensively, how he gives you value is his playmaking, the fact that he can get into the paint, collapse defenses, open up offensive rebound opportunities for you, kick out someone's first passes, all those type of things. But he fundamentally what that requires then is for Trae to drop his usage. And Trae is not a good off-ball guard, even if he's a good shooter, which is questionable. Like his catch and shoot, he just doesn't catch and shoot. Like him and Luka have the same problem. It's actually hilarious that like neither of these guys can catch and shoot. They have to put the ball on the floor after they catch it, no matter how open they are, and then take a shot. But like he doesn't catch and shoot. So you took your second overall, I think they were second offensive rating last year, and you're actually reducing it, even though you've got this also very good player, and your defense just hasn't improved enough. And then you also got rid of two of your higher volume 3-point shooters in Herter and Gallinari. Yeah. And I'm not saying it was wrong to get rid of Gallinari because, okay, you make if he's the player salary going out to get DeJounte Murray, go for it. But I think their whole concept of why you get DeJounte, how that works for Trae, and then the impact on the rest of the roster was just flawed. And then on top of it, Collins has just been terrible from 3 this year. So it's just a total mess. And the other thing, like they've been telegraphing they want to trade Collins for 2 years.
John Collins has been traded for 7 years straight. Like he hasn't been in the league that long.
He's the new Miles Turner. He's the new Miles Turner.
Yeah. No, I mean, and the funny thing to me about the DeJounte Murray's thing is it's actually similar to what Lakers fans are saying about D'Angelo Russell now. It's like, oh well, he's really good defensively. He's a good defensive point guard. It's like they were good defensive point guards for the same reason, which is they basically had free defensive roles in their last team. You bring DeJounte to the Hawks, he can't have a free defensive role anymore Because
Yeah,
if he has a free, like Trae Young's right next to him, like you like it doesn't right. Like it's easy. Kyrie like had a free defensive role in Cleveland, but like he's not a good defender. No, nobody would make that mistake.
Yeah, and but like to be fair to Kyrie, I mean, not that I want to be fair to Kyrie, but Kyrie's like he's a bad defender, but he's like 17 levels above Trae Young as a
Oh
defender.
yeah, well, and Kyrie can be a good defender. Like Kyrie
Yeah.
has the ability to be a good defender. He's just like he doesn't care about it. But no, Trae Young's like legitimately. I haven't seen that bad of lateral quickness in a guard ever.
Yeah, I
Like
mean
I
it's also
don't
just pure
understand it.
it's just pure laziness too. Like so they played us again like last game for the break. He had 4 steals in that game. All of those steals were just like him letting his man go by him and then poking it away. And it's like it actually pissed me off after the third one because I'm like, he has one thing he does on defense. This is it. There's nothing else he does. He does absolutely nothing else. This is it. It's the only thing he does. Like, please stop letting him do it. But like he's terrible defensively. And then, like I like Capella, but you drafted a Kongwu, and it's like, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite because I just justified like, okay, well, we have Randall, we have Obi, this is why you have to trade Obi. But like, it's more of an issue of we've been able to retain talent or add talent while dealing with this awkward situation that probably is untenable long term. Whereas they've been like kind of reducing their talent, especially on the wings. Like, look, Cam Reddish is an enigma, but they got rid of him, right? They just traded him for Kevin Knox. So that evaporated. They trade Herter again. We talked about this for protected first. That's gone. Bogdanovich looks like a shell of himself. He's probably gone after this year. Gallinari is gone. So now you're replacing these guys with what? Like, I think Jalen Johnson's a pretty interesting talent. He looks, when I've seen him this year, he actually looks pretty good. But like, okay, so he's going to be he's still behind John Collins, who's still on your fucking roster. Are you going to trade John Collins? Like, what's happening here? So if you don't trade John Collins, you've already burned. This is his second year of his rookie contract for Jalen Johnson. So now you're in danger of repeating the same mistake. And then you got AJ Griffin. So like, okay, good. AJ Griffin looks like a good wing player.
Yeah, AJ Griffin, I actually think he looks really good. That was a good pick.
I agree. Yeah, he was a good pick, and he looks good. But that's one guy, and we just named like 4 dudes that they have not replaced at all. And it's like, I just don't get it. Like, if I'm them, I'm seriously looking to trade Trae Young after this year. I think that's the best. Yeah, that's the best way to replenish your asset stash. I think it's the best way to reorder your cap sheet and just get it in control. And also just like get some depth and get some wings. Like I think Shamit Dua at Fear the Brown on Twitter. He tweeted out something like the Brooklyn Nets they're perfectly designed to trade for Trae Young. And I like thought about that. I'm like, that's actually true. Like they have 5,000 3-and-D wings who can't and should never dribble. And they have too many of them. And the Hawks need those wings, and they need Trae Young. Like it makes total sense. They should definitely do it. And now they're sitting on all these picks, right, from Phoenix and one from Dallas. Like, yeah, go for it. Do that trade. Like that would be.
Well, I mean, like look at what Utah did this summer, right? Like they could have kept Gobert and Mitchell and run it back. Like they could have, but they realized they hit a ceiling. And like, I don't think Utah. Like, I'm surprised they kept Lauri Markkanen because I figured that was a guy that, like, you could have definitely gotten something for. But like,
I mean, he's balling.
Utah replenished its assets.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like he's balling out. They already replenished their assets, so it's like, are we sure we need more right now? Like, should we just keep this guy? He's white and we're in Utah. Like, we should probably keep him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, right. Like that's they got rid of Conley too, who Utah fans hated. So wonder why.
But that was a good trade for them too. Like that was like, hey, like we have these 3 guys who honestly we really don't want to have as pieces in the future. Like Vanderbilt, he's going to be an expiring contract next year. Malik Beasley, even if they took his team option up, was an expiring contract next year. Mike Conley, an expiring contract next year. Like, hey, let's just dump these guys now for Russ and get one more first-round pick, which could be super valuable, right? It's like a top 4 protected Lakers pick. And it's like, what was amazing to me about this deadline, and we can, we'll move to the Raptors at some point, but it's like, Danny Ainge was more reasonable at this trade deadline than Masai Ujiri, which is
I
like,
know, it was
I don't
fucking
know what world
insane.
I'm living in now. But I'm like, I actually think Danny Ainge in general, like, I think what happened is he got, he shot the moon on the Mitchell trade and the Gobert trade. And he was just like, you know what? Like, after that, he's been like, yeah, all right, you know what? You want Bogdanovich, just give me Kelly Olynyk. I don't care. You want
Right.
Beverly? Fine. Give me Taylor Horn Tucker. Okay, you want these three guys? Just give me a top 4 protected pick. That's fine. Like, let's just keep it moving. I'm good. Like, we are good. Just let's move on. Masai sitting here like, no, I can't trade OG Anunoby unless you give me the
Also,
Donovan Mitchell
like,
trade package.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I like OG, I do, but like, he's not
That
Donovan Mitchell. Like, he's not even close. Like, OG Anunoby is a guy like, right? Is OG Anunoby as good as Andrew Wiggins was in the finals last year?
no,
No. So, like, what are we even talking about here?
he's not capable of like Wiggins shouldn't be. I mean, look, like I mean this not to criticize Andrew Wiggins, who I think like all credit to him for turning his career around and
Career
everything.
turnaround for real,
Yeah,
yeah.
but like he's not. He's like one of the worst second options on a title team that's been around for. I honestly can't tell you the last one.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe like Dallas
It's kind of
2011,
pathetic.
whoever their second, Jason Terry, like that'd be like maybe
Yeah,
the
I
last
mean,
one.
was 2011 Terry? Yeah, I guess so. It would have been
Yeah.
Jason Terry.
So like
Yeah.
that's probably the last one. Or like if you want to do like that weird 2014 Spurs team, but that team was just weird. They didn't really have like a second option. They had like
Yeah, I mean, that team, like, they were just really good.
yeah, that just doesn't make sense. But like
Yeah.
like he had games that like he first of all was locking down. He had Jason Tatum in hell, and he
Yeah.
was straight up like getting buckets for them when they needed it. And he's not just getting buckets, right? He's creating buckets. Like
Yeah.
OG is a good player. To me, the way I've described him though is like because I've seen this like RJ Barrett's really struggled this year on both ends of the floor, especially defense though. Like the defense has fallen off a cliff with him this year. And I've seen Knicks fans that are like, I would trade him for OG right now. And like I get that sentiment because that would 100%, if we made that deal in the offseason, that 1,000% makes us a better team next year. There's no question in my mind that makes us a better team next year. But does that actually like alter, like, because does that change anything about your trajectory? And is he a better bet as just a trade chip to achieve that, or is RJ still like? Because to me, like I'm gonna have to pay OG after next year, and that's a market rate deal, so that's probably gonna be around like 35 million a year, I would think, heading into that 2025 season pretty soon. Like I think that's gonna be more expensive than RJ. But the bigger thing again is just like does like if you get OG at the prices that were being bandied about, right? 3 first-round picks, whatever the fuck. Like if let's say you're Memphis. Memphis is like, hey, you know what? Let's go get OG. They want apparently they wanted a young player plus like 2 unprotected picks and another first of some kind. Let's say you're like, okay, we're going to give you our next 2 unprotected picks. We'll give you the Golden State protected first we have, and we'll give you, fucking Santi Aldama, John Conchar, whatever. These young guys that are not named Desmond Bain, John Morant, or Jaren Jackson Jr.
Sure.
Like, is that really getting you over the top? Like, I don't think it does. And maybe that's a bad example because at least Memphis does have all their own picks, and they wouldn't be like totally, bereft of draft equity to trade in the future. But like for other teams, you're talking about like they're talking about Golden State, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that, but it's like they're limited then forever. I don't know. It just the market for him makes no sense to me.
OG Anunoby is like there's like a bracket of NBA players. Like it's him, it's Mikal Bridges, it's frankly like an Andrew Wiggins. So, right, these are guys that are like Harrison Barnes a number of years ago, right? That will get traded or walk in free agency, go somewhere, get really overpaid. And they're good players. None of those guys are bad players. And like Wiggins is the best out of all of them. Like his defense is just incredible. But like Anunoby, Bridges, like they're good players. The Nets, like, hey, getting Bridges back for Durant was like you had it. Like that had to happen. But like people are talking, like I saw some Nets people saying like Mikal Bridges could basically become Kevin Durant. It's like, are you fucking kidding? Like he's a good player. He's a really good player, but he's not the guy. He's not even the guy to the guy.
I have a theory of this. Like, I have a theory. I think there are certain archetypes of players that, in my opinion, get overvalued by like a lot of impact metrics. Not or maybe not overvalued is the wrong term, or overrated, but like they don't properly account for the role they're in.
Yeah,
This happens with
the role doesn't scale.
yeah, like this happens with bigs all the time, right? Because like every big man, like if you sort by like win shares, it's like the top 20 is just like it's all big guys, and you'll be like Enes Kanter, one of the best players in the NBA, like shit like that, right? You'll get that out there, and it's like it doesn't. It's not telling you what you think it's telling you, right? It's telling you that in the touches they get and in the things they do, they're productive, but you can't gauge what they do, and you can't compare what like Mitchell Robinson does to what Jalen Brunson does. It's not a comparison. Like it's just not, because Mitchell Robinson doesn't have to drive offense for a team. Yeah, he's a defensive anchor and he's really fucking good at it. But the most valuable skill in basketball, any GM, any scout, any executive will tell you, is the ability to be an offensive initiator, to be able to have offense run through you and allow others to play off of you, which is why like not just getting creators, but getting creators who can play off of each other is the dream. Like that's what you want to do when you're building a team. And guys like OG and McCall, they're really good players. They're both really good players, and they're both really good defensively for different reasons, I think. But like they will never have the ability in a game 7 like to just be like nobody else can get a bucket, like give me the ball and I'll just make it happen. Like they will never have that. And that's not like a knock on them, but like that's why you can't compare these guys to like you can throw all the impact you want at me. You can. You can. And to be fair to them, there's a difference between you telling me like I think McCall Bridges is better than Zach LaVine. I would be like,
Yes, I
yes,
agree with that.
I'm with that. Like I agree. Like Zach LaVine is not a yes, he's capable of having offense run through him, but he's like he's the guy you're running offense through as a first or second option on a team, you're probably not going anywhere. Like you're
Yeah,
just
you're
not going
like the Chicago Bulls.
right. Exactly. So it's like yeah, I agree with that. There are offensive initiators that are ceiling cappers, but like when you're talking about like I saw McCall Bridges All-Star. Maybe I am very skeptical of that, but like that's fine. Maybe he makes an All-Star team, but he's not going to be an All-Star the way that like Donovan Mitchell is an All-Star. He's
No.
not. Like I'm sorry, and it doesn't matter if Jalen Brunson never makes an All-Star team. You will never convince me in 1,000 years that Jalen Brunson is not like way better than McCall Bridges. Like you're
I mean,
never gonna.
Jalen Brunson, like you know this better than I do, but his underlying numbers this year are just like
Oh yeah,
he's doing incredible. Like he deserves to be an all-star this year just by like some of those. And like right, his role is scalable because he's at that role already.
Right, and it's scalable because we also saw him play next to Luka, and he was really
Right.
good playing off of Luka. And then it was like, okay, no Luka, now you have to run the offense, and now he's like, great, I'll do that. Like I can do that and maintain my efficiency, and this is great. This is wonderful. It's like players that can scale usage up and down, and like those are the most valuable players in basketball. Guys that have to operate at like even if you're an awesome shot creator, if you have to like this is why I actually I think about this often with Luka, where it's like obviously he's a fucking awesome player. You know, there's no like he's top 5, top whatever the fuck you want to say. I wouldn't really question it. But like, can he actually play next to other guys that are talented offensively and scale his usage down? Because the evidence so far in his career suggests maybe not, or maybe not super effectively. And maybe that's part of his growing process as a
I'm
player.
fascinated by how this Kyrie stuff works. Like I'm like disregarding my hate for Kyrie the person. Like
Oh, it's going to
I'm
be awesome to
actually
watch.
yeah, like I'm actually fascinated because but like Kyrie was able to do it with LeBron because it was LeBron and Kyrie hated it so much he asked out. So now
Well,
I'm
didn't he
fascinated how this
ask out
works.
actually the year after they won, like the year they won the
The year
finals?
they won the
Yeah.
title, he was talking about it, and David Griffin convinced him to stay. And then he spent a full year pouting and like getting into like Earth is flat conspiracy theories. Then they lose, but he has a great finals.
Yeah, he was awesome
And
that
there's
finals.
like he and LeBron, like LeBron has his arms around him after, and like the line is literally like, "We'll be back next year."
And I
like
think
a
LeBron had a
week
quote like,
later.
I think LeBron had some quote like, my time is almost up. Like Kyrie is
Yeah.
gonna like ascend and like he's gonna be the one. I'm like, I remember like a month later, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving threatened to get surgery, so we traded him. Like,
Well,
wait,
and it
what?
was like the weirdest thing. It was like Kyrie accused LeBron of like wanting him traded for Eric Bledsoe. Like it was like one of those things that was like you could see that happening with LeBron, but not this. Like it was that absurd. Like it was like, wait, what?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, anyways, like I am really like fascinated at how this Kyrie Luka thing works because those are two guys that like I mean Kyrie had a blip, but other than that, they have not been like good at sharing the ball. They just don't do anything when they're not
Yeah,
on it. So I'm fascinated.
yeah. It's gonna be. It's also just like a very. So I'm not. I'm not this like. I've I've had some very up and down moments in terms of just like evaluating Kyrie as a basketball player. But like what I've always liked about Kyrie as a ball player is what you're talking about. Is like he might hate it, he might not love it, but actually his best talent as a basketball player is that when he buys into being that second option, he is fucking awesome at it.
I
He
mean,
is
the
fucking
Nets when
awesome at
they
it.
won like 10, like what was it, 12 straight this
Yeah, yeah.
year? It like that was that, right? Kyrie was second option. It was like, well, fuck me. Like you're not gonna
Right.
stop it.
Yeah, he's amazing in that role. I don't think that would have worked in the playoffs because I just don't think Durant is a good enough primary. Like if he has to do the playmaking initiating, like he's not good enough for that, and neither is Kyrie, which is kind of why he's awesome as a secondary guy.
Well, that's why they wanted James Harden, and then that
Right,
went to
right.
shit.
Yeah, well, Harden got there and he was like, "Wait, you're not going to get the shot?
Yeah.
Okay." I'm not sure if I'm going to sign my extension, but I'll let you know in a few months. All right, guys. Um, but that's why I'm actually like he might hate playing next to Luca. He might hate every minute of it. But I know for sure, offensively, anyways, he's going to be fucking awesome. Like he's going to be. It's just and he's like playing for his contract, so he's going to be like number one teammate on his best behavior here.
Yeah, I actually don't buy that. I
You
don't
know,
think he's playing for his contract. No, I think in 6 months he's going to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers.
in some way, shape, or form.
I think this has already been agreed
So you
because I
what?
think LeBron basically said if you don't like my vibe is LeBron said like you don't want me demanding a trade because like so you're going to get in somebody and that's why I think they did this trade right. It's great. The Lakers will not make the playoffs this year. Like I know, like you hear it, like some of the Lakers people are like, oh well, like D'Angelo Russell gives us spacing, and like we have Vanderbilt now who can play as a big, and like, Malik Beasley who can shoot. They're not making playoffs.
They're in too big of a hole, I think.
Yeah, and so then they'll have this big salary spot open because of Russell, and I think they're going to sign Kyrie. I think that was pretty much. I think Kyrie thought he was getting traded to the Lakers. I think LeBron thought Kyrie was getting traded to the Lakers. I think the Lakers thought Kyrie was getting traded to the Lakers, and then he wasn't.
Well, I think Sai just was like, no, not gonna like
Yeah,
I'm just not doing that for you. Like, fuck you.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
trading you where you want to go. But I do think that's a good point you bring up because technically D'Angelo Russell and Kyrie Irving could be signed and traded for each other this offseason.
yeah. I think that's probably going to happen.
I would be interested in that. But like I still think he's gonna
I
be on his
actually think D'Lo in Dallas is a good fit too.
yeah, I think any guard who has off ball skills can be good next to Luca. The problem for Luca or the thing he has to work on is okay, you'll have these guys that can play off ball next to you. You also have to be able to give them enough usage. Like you have to be and you have to be able to play off ball. That's Luca's biggest problem is he can't play off ball. He does nothing off ball. He won't catch and shoot. He doesn't cut. Like he's just there as a release valve effectively. And then
I mean, how much of that do you think is Jason Kidd though?
So I've thought about I don't think a lot. I think this is an organizational choice because Carlisle effectively had them doing the same thing.
That's true.
He told KP to go stand in the corner and space the floor. That's like literally what they did in that Clippers series. And I remember watching that series and people were like, I mean, I was making fun of KP too, but like in the back of my head, I'm like, I mean, what he can't really do anything. Like he's just in the corner waiting for the ball. Like he can't. You're not in a position to be like, yo, throw me the rock. Like it's just not working like that. But I do think it's interesting. Like both Brunson and Porzingis left Dallas, and they've both played. I wouldn't say Brunson's played better, but I think he's definitely been like he's shown that he was capable of doing way more than he was doing in Dallas. And we already got a glimpse of that in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And then in Porzingis' case, like he's doing way more, and he's been more efficient. I think so. It's
Although
like
I'll say, so I saw the Cavs play the Wizards a few weeks ago, and Jared Allen just like abused Porzingis. The whole like Porzingis looked so like weak. There was at one point where like Allen just did like a half turn, and Porzingis just fell over. Like he's really, for a guy that's been in the league so long, that's so big, he's not become strong.
well, he's still like low key much better offensively, and just like offensively, he's like offensively, he's like probably he's better as a scorer, like an actual give the ball to him type of scorer at the 4, because he's capable now of like punishing mismatches, and he gets a lot of mismatches at the 4.
Yeah.
But at the 5,
Well, he and Beal, when they play together, they look really good.
yeah, he's gotten a lot better as like a passer. Not that he's like a great playmaker, but he's just like those quick pitches and all that type of stuff. Like he's good at that now. But like at the 5 offensively, he can't punish bigs inside, so his value is really just taking them out of the paint, right? And to be fair to him, like he's one of the few 5s that genuinely has that type of gravity to like force your center to come out. But you're right, like defensively at the 5, there's still issues with him where like guys that have skill in the post can own him, and on the defensive glass, like they can get after it on him. So he's still got issues there, but like either way,
yeah, he's been better than he was in Dallas.
Yeah,
like,
he's just so obviously better there. Yeah. And it's like, I'm just curious to see like how many guys this happens with, because it's instructive, I think. Like, and I'm not sure it says everything about Luka, but it has to say something, right? It has to say something.
Well, and
like,
again, this gets to like why the Kyrie thing's fascinating, right? Like, I think there's a world where Luka and Kyrie, for like the odd couple, end up meshing really well together, and Dallas goes on a huge run.
Right.
Like, I think it's plausible. Kyrie's gonna pout and whine and talk about how like the Holocaust wasn't real, because he's gonna be mad that he's a number 2 option.
He's probably
But,
going to
like, they
ask
could
him
end up
like
winning,
what does government mean to you?
Yeah. He's actually gonna say like Eastern Europe isn't actually a region; it's just on your head. But or that everybody in the Dallas Mavericks organization is Jewish, because just everybody's Jewish. But no, but like they are a team that like it wouldn't shock me. I don't see how. I have a lot of issues with that team. I actually think trading Finney Smith is gonna hurt. Like that guy, he was really good in that role. But they're a team that like could make a run. The West is really weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, so the way I look at them is they're a team I wouldn't want to play in a playoff series.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're a serious contender. Like
I don't know. I mean, I agree.
The West
like,
is weird though. The West is weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we still haven't even seen the fucking Suns yet. Like, we don't know what they're gonna look like.
I was like, Durant hasn't done 3-on-3 practice drills. Like that may be a team that like by all intents and purposes should win, and they just don't have enough reps together come playoff time.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that part of it is probably being undersold a little bit. And the West is so weird. Like, the West is so weird. Like, you lose 3 in a row, you're maybe falling out of the playoffs. You win 3 in a row, you might be like the 4 seed, right? It's just, it's absolutely bananas out there.
And like Bones Highland trade is another weird one, because like he wasn't working in Denver, right? That was clear, but like it wasn't because he wasn't talented or wasn't scoring. It just,
I think that was a bad vibes thing. I don't know what was.
Yeah, it was a vibes thing. Yeah,
yeah, it was definitely bad.
Great.
Yeah,
like with he's Ty Lue, like you may or blanking.
Yeah, Ty Lue.
Yeah,
the Clippers.
Yeah, Clippers. Yeah. Like with George and Leonard, like that may work. Like
it might, because their offense is like not flowy, right? It's not like it's literally just like every possession is just somebody cooking. Like that's the offense. It's
Yeah,
just like
when
you
those
cook,
two,
I cook, we all cook.
yeah.
That's it.
No,
Like
I mean
that's what their offense is.
it has like Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron, Kyrie, Lou era vibes. Like it really kind of does. Like, and when George and Leonard play together, like I actually am a firm believer. I think the Clippers could be a team that just like it. They are a matchup problem if those guys are healthy, including Bones Highland. Like that's like you can't guard all three of those guys.
Oh, you can. But it's the Clippers are just so weird. Like I still think that their end of game offense they just need a point guard so bad. Every time I watch them, I'm just like your end of game offense is just so dependent on like Kawhi and Paul George just like producing against defenses that are loaded up against them.
Yeah.
And it's like what there's a limit to that. There's just a limit to what you can do. Like Kawhi won his last championship with the Raptors. He was awesome. He's always been awesome in the playoffs. Like he literally his playoff numbers, he improves. Like he is one of the few rare guys in NBA history, if you look at it, whose efficiency goes up in the playoffs. But like that team worked because Kyle Lowry was a solid fucking point guard. That's why that worked. They don't have that guy, and I think it's a mistake to like put that burden on guys like Kawhi and PG because like yes, they can play make, but you don't want to depend on them to have to initiate everything at the end of games. You want them at the end of games to get the ball in position to score. And
well, the good news is they're signing average 11 assists for 3 years in a row Russell Westbrook to be the point guard. So they've got that solved.
Yeah, they figured it out. We're good.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I was reading this article, but it was like how basically all the messaging out of the Clippers front office has been like very obviously like they don't want Russ, but then all of their like you've got like Paul George and fucking all these guys in the team like obviously winking at him and saying whispering sweet nothings, and it's like it's one of those things where it'll be if I were the front office I would desperately find a way to sabotage it. Like I would be finding a way. Oh,
well, the good news is Russ is like I read this thing where Russ is like not sure he wants to play in LA anymore because of how bad things got with the Lakers. So like, I mean, for Russ, like everybody's like, oh, all these teams are offering him contracts.
I'll
believe it when I see it. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. I think like Russ is a guy that, and to be fair to him, like I think he did accept that bench role on the Lakers this year. It wasn't about accepting it. It was about like still being a very inefficient player.
Well, he still plays like Russ when he's on the floor. Like
Yeah,
that's the problem.
it doesn't. Yeah, like it doesn't matter. So I don't know. Like I don't think that works for anybody in today's NBA.
I mean, I'm just pulling up the stats right now from this year, but like, so hold on one second. Just this year, okay. This is Russell Westbrook. He averaged 16 a game, just under 16 a game, 16.9, 7.5 assists, 6.2
Yeah.
rebounds in just under 29 minutes a game. He was shooting. His splits are 41.
There you go. That's your end of game point guard.
Right.
7 assists a game.
Yeah, 7.5. 41.7 from the field, 29.6 from three, 65.5 from the free throw line. His true shooting was under 50, 49.6. His EFG is 46. Like the numbers on their surface look fine. The efficiency is terrible, and they're terrible in any role. And his usage is still high. Like like we're talking about scalable. He was at 28.8 usage. That was actually higher than his usage last year. Like he can't scale down his efficiency, he can't scale down his usage, and it doesn't even help his efficiency when he scales down his usage. That's the craziest part about it. So, I don't really know like what's happening with the Russ thing. Before we continue, I do have to make an announcement. NBA fans, it's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, for a limited time, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, opt in, and place a same-game parlay on any NBA game, and if it doesn't hit, you'll get a bonus bet back. Download the app now and sign up with code TBPN. New customers can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with code TBPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Yeah, look, the Clippers are weird. The West itself, it's in and of itself is weird. There was so much movement at the trade deadline. I did like what the Clippers did. I thought getting Plumlee was good. Bones was like, I don't think he's going to matter this year, but they need to take bets on young talent. And the fact they got him for 2 second-round picks, I'm very good with that. I like what they basically used Kennard to get Plumlee. Kennard wasn't playing. Plumlee's going to play. They needed a second big. That's a good use of like a superfluous asset. I like what they did. I didn't love what Memphis doing nothing. I think they needed something. I don't love anything about how that team's been playing lately. Their vibes, everything with that
they've
team.
been terrible. They've been terrible, and they're just a genuinely dislikable team.
They're dislikable, and they don't seem to understand why they're dislikable. And like, I don't know if that's something you can fix. I really believe this. They seem like a team that really needs to get its fucking ass kicked in the playoffs as a favorite. Like they're going to be a favorite this year for most of it, and because they were still playing on the underdog thing last year, right? They beat Minnesota in the dumbest playoff series I've ever watched in my life, and I mean that truly. Like, if you want to watch the dumbest basketball ever played in the NBA playoffs, go watch those 6 games, the dumbest series you'll ever watch in your life. And then they lose to the Warriors. They weren't quite a real underdog, but they were an underdog, and they whatever. It was like a plucky story. Ja got hurt. Okay, we took them to 6 games, whatever. I think this year they seem so primed to get in a series against let's say the Clippers drop to the 7 seed, or like the Suns
or the
or something like that,
Warriors.
or the Warriors. Like they just seem so primed to play one of these teams and get their shit kicked in. And I think they will need to really look in the mirror because, look, I'm going to be quite honest. The Ja Morant stuff, I haven't talked about it too much on the pod because I don't really know what to say about it. But I'm not going to sit here and call anybody a thug, but that shit is just weird. But there's just always something going on with this guy. There's always something that has nothing to do with basketball going on with him and the people around him. And it's like, I don't know how that guy can, he's threatening people on Twitter to kill them. Like he's getting lawsuits filed against him by a 17-year-old for fighting him. He's got this whole thing with the security personnel in Indiana where they thought his crew was maybe pointing guns at them. And then it was then he's got the thing in LA with Shannon Sharp and his dad. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here with this guy? How and how has he not? He hasn't gotten suspended, not once. How is that fucking possible? That's an embarrassment to me. I think it's crazy. And I actually think it's dangerous, not because I don't actually think I highly doubt that he's some hidden gang member or something like that. But I think it's dangerous in the sense of it breeds that sense of entitlement that they kind of play with, and I think they feed off of him. Is he plays and the way he talks and that whole I'm fine in the West. What have you done? You haven't. You've won one fucking playoff series. What do you mean you're fine in the West? You have won one playoff series.
They trash talk all game long. It's annoying. I remember early in the season they were like, "Oh, that is Hollywood basketball. They're just so enjoyable."
That's just how they play. That's who they are. How? Yeah. I don't care if so they're just fucking annoying.
Playing fucking Memphis. I don't know. Have you been to Memphis? There's tornadoes there. That's the big hidden attraction. Tornadoes and blues music. You're not all they do
clubs.
all. Yes. Yeah. They do all game long. They just talk trash, and it's so annoying to even watch. And they're gonna hit some vet team, like you said, and the vet team's just not gonna care, and they're just gonna destroy them.
I'm telling you, the thing that people misunderstand about Kevin Durant is you can like fluster him and but you don't fluster him by like shit talking him. That's not what gets to him. Like it's like what the Celtics said, where they were just like, we're just really long and physical and super annoying because we have like 17 different guys that we can throw at you. That's what's annoying about us. Not that like Dylan Brooks is going to be the most aggro asshole in the entire world and like basically try to injure you. Like that guy, that guy is out of control. Like absolutely out of control. That thing with Mitchell was that?
Oh
like,
no, I still have sympathy pain from that.
That was insane. I don't know what
he's been hurt. Like I don't know if you've been following. Like since that, he's missed multiple games for a groin injury that was suffered in that game.
No, that was like a joke. And what was even more insane is like I forgot who somebody was it Reggie Miller on the broadcast? He was like, oh, I don't think Dylan Brooks saw him there. I'm like, are you an idiot?
Like, no, Dylan Brooks saw him. Like it was very clear.
It's Dylan Brooks. Like it doesn't matter. Like you could tell me like 15 other guys in the league, and I've been like, yeah, maybe, like okay, I can see it. Dylan Brooks, that was 100%. He knew exactly what he was doing there.
Yep.
And I was like happy Donovan Mitchell went at him because enough of these guys acting like they're like again, you haven't won anything. Like Draymond does this shit, right? You know why Draymond can do it, and like I don't like it can annoy me. But Draymond has won. He's been like the second best player on 4 championship teams, or at least 3, right? Whatever.
Yeah,
and maybe not best, but second most important. Let's put it that way.
And like Draymond has done it and has done like the testicle kicks. But like what I will also say about Draymond is it is not like
it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same. It's not like it's not just him being a thug. Like he's doing it to like try to win a game, which doesn't make it better inherently, but it's not the same.
But I also think he nut punched LeBron, right? I don't fundamentally feel like he doesn't actually not respect LeBron. Like
no, he's always respecting him. He's been very clear about that.
Right.
Like,
and so
they're good friends too.
Yeah, and it's never been a thing, right? Like I don't think Draymond has ever like not respected an opponent. Like yeah, in the midst of like the game, he might go absolutely ballistic. But he doesn't like not respect his opponent.
You don't become that good at defending these every LeBron, KD. Like you don't become that good at it not respecting them because you study their games.
Right, and I think like there's just like a fundamental lack of respect. And I know this. We sound like the old baseball guys right now. It's like the written rules of the game. Like you got to honor, but like that you do. Like you can't just like start talking all this shit. When you've won one fucking playoff series, like I would actually, if the Knicks, like if you just had like Jalen Brunson and Randall and RJ Barrett and quickly, just running their mouth all the time, I'd fucking hate them. I'd be like, why are you doing this? This is dumb. Like your high watermark was getting your ass kicked by the Hawks in the first round 2 years ago. Like, stop this. Like, we don't need this. Like, this is just dumb.